Welcome to Afro Tales. Continue the story. Amy was working on her laptop when her phone chirped. She almost ignored it, absorbed in her work, but glanced at the screen just as the call was about to end. The caller ID showed her husband's secretary, Joan. Amy answered quickly, wondering why Joan would call her directly. She had saved Joan's number only because on days when she couldn't reach her husband, Callan, at the office, Joan would pass the phone to him. This was the first time Joan had called her. Amy lifted the phone to her ear, then froze. What she heard left her shocked and unsettled. Obscene, breathy sounds. She checked the screen again to be sure it was really Joan. When she put the phone back to her ear, the same sounds filled the line. Harsh, loud moans. Amy had spoken with Joan enough times to recognize her voice. The moans were definitely Joan's. Had Joan dialed her by mistake during an intimate moment with her boyfriend? Amy wanted to hang up and chalk it up to an accident, but the next words nearly made her drop the phone. Me, baby. Callan, go deeper. I'm loving it. Oh my gosh. Amy's heart lurched. No, impossible. She ended the call at once. She trusted Callan with her life and loved him dearly. She hadn't been able to conceive yet, but the two of them had always shown each other love and affection. Callan cheating number. She shook her head, refusing to believe it. Maybe Joan was trying to stir up trouble, to play the villain in their marriage, but a small, stubborn voice inside her wouldn't let her rest. In a world where anything can happen, what if Callan really was cheating? While she was lost in thought, another notification chimed. It was a text from Joan. Amy's pulse quickened as she opened it. The message gave the name of a hotel and an exact room number telling Amy to come. What was happening? Anxiety tightening her chest. Amy shut her laptop and hurried to her wardrobe. She was still in loungewear and had to change. When she finished dressing, she stepped into the hallway to tell her mother-in-law, who lived with them, that she had something urgent to attend to. She checked Wilmer's room and knocked, but it was empty. The kitchen then. As Amy approached, she heard raucous laughter. Wilmer. Unaware that Amy was outside, Wilmer said into the phone, "That Barren woman is such an idiot. I wonder what my son ever saw in her. She spends his money and can't even give him a child. I've never seen such a shameless woman." Amy's chest tightened. She stepped into the kitchen. Wilmer turned, startled, her hand gripping the counter. Half an hour earlier, Amy had told her she would be busy until evening. Wilmer hadn't expected her to be around, which was why she felt free to speak so carelessly on the phone. Unsure whether Amy had heard, Wilmer cleared her throat. "Amy, I thought you were going out? Are you scared, Mom?" Amy asked with a small, pained smirk. "Scared? Why would I be?" Wilmer stammered. "I'll be leaving. I have something important to do." "Ma," Amy said, turning away, leaving Wilmer uncertain whether she had overheard anything. Amy reached the hotel quickly and walked straight to the room Joan had mentioned. She hesitated, then decided knocking would only warn them. She turned the knob. The door opened. Her eyes widened. Callan and Joan were naked. Amy's handbag slipped from her hand. Her legs went weak. "Please let this be a dream," she thought. Hot tears rushed down her cheeks. A searing pain tore through her chest. "Callan," she managed to say between sobs. Callan laughed. To Amy's shock, Joan laughed too, leaning against him without a shred of remorse. "Why are you crying, barren woman?" Callan sneered. "Did you think I'd put up with you forever? You don't want me to have a child? It's your fate not to conceive, but it isn't mine." Amy wept harder. Had he been cheating all along? When had he changed? He used to love her. She's really good at crying. Joan scoffed. For a moment, Amy wanted to lunge at her to strike her. But it wasn't Joan who had vowed to be faithful. The blame was Callan's. He had betrayed her love and trust. Amy straightened, wiped her eyes, and said steadily, "You betrayed me, Callan. It's over between us." She grabbed her handbag and left the room. In the hallway, she slid down against the wall and sobbed. The pain was the worst she had ever known. It felt as if the only way out was to end her life. Instead, she drove to the courthouse, filed for divorce, and returned home. Wilmer was at the dining table with a cup of tea. Amy set the divorce papers, signed by her alone, on the table. "Ma, I heard what you said on the phone before I left," she said quietly. Wilmer nearly choked. Amy continued, placing the forms in front of her. "I also caught Callan with his secretary. It's clear I'm not wanted in this family. Here are the divorce papers. I've signed them. When he gets home, tell him to sign and tell him I've gone." Inside, Wilmer was elated, though she tried to look somber, as if she were sad. "Don't pretend to be upset, Mom," Amy said. "We both know you've never wanted me with your son." She turned to leave. "Where are you going?" Wilmer demanded, dropping the pretense. "To pack my things," Amy replied. "You're not taking a single thing from this house," Wilmer said coldly. "Everything here was bought with my son's money. Just go." The words cut deeper than Amy expected, but she managed a thin smile. Sure, the only possession that truly mattered to her was the bracelet her mother had given her years ago. She already had it in her hand. She looked toward the door that led outside and walked away slowly, painfully. Amy sat in one of the city's most luxurious clubs until late, when it was usually at its busiest. 2 bottles of liquor sat before her as she tried to drown her sorrow. For 3 years of marriage, she had been completely faithful to that man. She wouldn't even allow another man to flirt with her, let alone cheat. She trusted him deeply, and he broke her heart as if it meant nothing. The more she drank, the more she hoped to forget. But it didn't help. The naked image of Joan and Callan kept replaying in her mind. Suddenly, she stood, anger burning through her, and looked around at the people dancing. She considered picking a random gigolo for a one-night stand. After all, she was divorced now, single again. She spotted a tall man slip into a room and hurried after him. Before the door could close, she stepped inside. Leaning into him, she reached back with her left hand and shut the door. Her mouth found his, hungry and urgent, until he finally responded. The moment quickly turned intimate. She tugged off her clothes. He pulled off his shirt. It was an intense, exhausting half-hour. When they both reached release, they collapsed on the bed and fell asleep. Amy woke a few hours later to find the man still sleeping in the darkroom. The light switch hadn't even been turned on when she'd barged in earlier. "This gigolo is good," she murmured, taking a few dollar bills from her purse and placing them in his palm. Though he slept, she wouldn't cheat him by leaving without paying. She slipped out quietly so as not to wake him. Amy left North Hill and took a train to a small city, determined to live a simple life. Staying in North Hill would only reopen her wounds. Callan was powerful, and after she dared to divorce him, he might try to make her life difficult. It was better to start over somewhere new. A few weeks later, she grew suspicious when morning sickness began. Each time she wondered if it could be pregnancy. She reminded herself she had spent 3 years with Ken and had never conceived. He had called her barren, saying that was her fate. She longed for a child and to know a mother's love, but it seemed she had not been blessed with it. Then came the greatest shock of her life. At the hospital, she was told she was 3 weeks pregnant. How could that be? Over the months, her belly grew larger than normal, worrying her so much that she wondered if she was even carrying a normal pregnancy. Why was her stomach protruding so much? 9 months later, Amy delivered at the hospital. The labor was stressful. She felt things leaving her body one after another, and even she doubted they were all babies. She shut her eyes and prayed that what came out of her would be a child. Seconds later, she opened them and saw 2 doctors and 4 nurses filling the room, each holding a newborn. They were all smiling. She blinked. Unsure if her question sounded foolish, she asked, "Sorry, are these my babies?" "Yes." Everyone answered, joy brightening the room. Amy could hardly believe her ears. Was she dreaming? How could someone once called Barren have so many babies? She counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She rubbed her face, stunned. 6. 6 babies, she whispered. Congratulations. The room erupted. Tears of joy streamed down her cheeks. She pressed both palms gently to them. She thanked God for blessing her so greatly. Drawing strength from the news, she sat up. "Let me hold them," she said happily, and the babies were placed in her arms one after another. She blessed each one and kissed their foreheads. Just a few months earlier, she had lived her worst day. Now she was living her best. 6 years later, Amy sat on a long wooden stool and called, "Elijah, Moses, Elisha." 3 handsome boys ran to her, grinning. Their clothes weren't expensive, but they looked striking, especially because the boys were identical. "Come here," Amy said, beckoning them closer. She ruffled their hair, smiling. "Call your sisters." "Angel," Elijah called. "Queen," Elisha shouted. "Debbie," Moses added. 3 adorable girls appeared, their long hair styled the same way, slim and beautiful, and like the boys, identical. Over the years, Amy had trained her children as best she could and spent quality time with them. They joked often, and when correction was needed, she gave it. The love between her and the 6 children was exceptionally strong. No one was there to pat her on the back for the hard work of raising 6 children for 6 years. It had been a tremendous task. Amy left the stool and sat on the grass while the children gathered around her in a circle. "We're leaving for North Hill tomorrow," she said. "Why, Mom?" Elijah asked at once. "The schools here aren't very good. The environment is peaceful, but I want you to have a better education and live in a more developed place," Amy replied. "Mom, didn't you say we can't go to North Hill because there are wicked people there?" Moses asked. They had once questioned why they lived in the village, and Amy had told them she used to live in North Hill, but came here to hide from people who wanted to hurt her. "Won't those people hurt you, Mom?" Angel asked in her small, angelic voice. Amy smiled. "I have 6 of you around me. Do you really think anyone can hurt me?" Elijah rolled up a sleeve and flexed. "That's right. See this muscle? Whoever tries to hurt Mom will get a punch in the face." "Yes, let's go to North Hill. We won't let anyone bully Mom," Elisha said, throwing both hands in the air. "I'm strong. Anyone who wants to hurt her has to go through me first." "Yes," Moses added. "Didn't Mom name us Elijah, Elisha, and Moses because she believes we're strong?" "Don't worry, Mom. We'll always be by your side. Those wicked people won't dare touch you." The 3 girls nodded. They were the same age as the boys. Not as physically strong, but they felt safe with their brothers. In the city, no one would dare hurt them, knowing how protective the boys were. "I trust Elijah, Moses, and Elisha," Queen said. "They won't let any of us get hurt." Debbie, the quiet one, simply felt sure they could return to North Hill and be safe. Amy's heart warmed at her children's show of courage. "Mom, will we get to see Dad too?" Elisha asked. All eyes turned to Amy. She had once told them their father lived in North Hill, but even she might not recognize him now. It had been 6 years, and North Hill was a big city. She doubted they would ever meet him again, especially since he had only been a gigolo. But she didn't want to crush their hope. "Yes," she said. The children jumped for joy, more eager than ever to go to North Hill the next day, hoping they would finally meet the father they had longed to see all their lives. Amy eventually returned to North Hill and rented a 2-bedroom apartment, the most she could afford. In fact, the rent consumed almost all the money she had saved from 6 years of work in the small city she had just left. Since she had a degree, she believed it wouldn't be hard to find work in North Hill. Even if she happened to run into Kalen again, 6 years was long enough that the past shouldn't shake her anymore. There was a good chance he had already married his secretary. Amy pushed the thought of Kalen aside and began searching online for jobs, applying to as many companies as she could. She refused to let her children go hungry. Feeding 6 children at once would certainly be expensive, and she had promised them a better education here. So she needed to get them into school as quickly as possible to be by the evening of the next day. She received an offer to start as a dental assistant at a hospital. The pay was a bit low, but it was better than nothing. She hoped one of the other companies she had applied to would offer something better soon. She started work the following day and threw herself into it. The dentist she assisted was friendly, and they began getting along quickly. Amy didn't want anything to jeopardize her salary, so she was careful with everything she did. On her 3rd day, her boss sent for her. As soon as she appeared before his desk, he said, "You should be in the laboratory and make sure all the necessary kits are ready by 2:00 p.m. A special person is coming for a dental examination, and I need you to be absolutely cautious. Understand?" "Understood, sir," Amy said, lowering her head politely before leaving. By 2:00 p.m., Amy was already in the room with all the necessary instruments, curious to see who this special person would be. A commotion outside drew her to the window. About 7 black Jeeps had pulled up with a Lamborghini in the middle. It was obvious the Jeeps were an escort for whoever sat inside the Lamborghini. A crowd had gathered quickly. Many people were even peering through the windows to catch a glimpse of the person in the car. Amy grew more curious. How special could someone be to attract such a crowd with his mere presence? 2 men in black suits stood behind the Lamborghini door, which opened by itself, and a pair of long, slender legs appeared before the man finally stepped out. A ray of sunlight fell across his face, and his appearance radiated nobility and elegance. He looked like someone from a royal family, and he exuded so much power that anyone watching could feel it. Amy couldn't see his face clearly, but she wondered if this was the special man coming for the examination. If he was, she needed to be very careful. The last thing she wanted was trouble with a powerful man in North Hill. All she wanted was to earn enough to take good care of her children. Soon, the door opened and Amy turned. Seeing her boss, she sighed in relief. "Everything is prepared, right?" the dentist asked. "Yes, sir." "Sorry, I just saw a man step out of the Lamborghini." "Is he the one we'll be attending to?" she asked. "That's right. He's the most powerful man in North Hill, and few people ever get the chance to see him. That's why there's a crowd. Please make sure everything goes smoothly, because I've heard he has a bad temper," the dentist finished. "Is this your first time working with him, sir?" Amy asked. "That's right. And honestly, I'm nervous." "Let's hope everything goes well," he said. Amy confirmed she had arranged everything as she was supposed to. The most powerful man in North Hill, she thought. Being careless around someone like that is a suicide mission. 2 burly men in suits entered, one carrying a briefcase and the other empty-handed. Both were tall and intimidating, and neither was smiling. A majestic presence filled the room as the powerful man entered. He was tall and slender, strikingly handsome, elegant in a way you could feel. His girlfriend must be lucky, Amy thought. "Welcome, sir," the dentist said, bowing and gesturing to the chair. The man sat quietly, and the dentist began examining his teeth. "Cotton forceps, please," the dentist said. Amy, standing by, handed him each item as quickly as she could, but she couldn't find the cotton forceps. "Did I forget to bring them? How could I be so careless?" I forgot them. I'll get them now, she blurted, rushing out. Gosh, how could I forget this? She found the forceps and hurried back to the lab. But to her surprise, neither the man nor his bodyguards were there, only the dentist. Holding the forceps, she asked, shocked, "Where is he?" The dentist handed her a letter and walked out without a word. Frowning, she opened it. She had been fired just like that for mistakenly forgetting a piece of equipment. It must be that special man who ordered this, she thought. How mean and inconsiderate. Can't someone make a mistake? She went to the dentist's office. "Sir, it was a mistake. Please forgive me," she pleaded. "I would never do that on purpose. I don't know how I could have forgotten it. Please, I'll never do it again. The man who ordered your dismissal is no ordinary man. Whatever he says is final. If you want to beg anyone, go to him," the dentist said, returning to his work. Amy could tell no amount of pleading would convince the dentist to defy the order. She ran downstairs, hoping to try her luck with the special man to explain that it was only her third day at work and that she needed the job for her children's sake. She didn't see him at first, only 4 burly men walking toward the Lamborghini, someone just ahead of them. Then no matter how harsh he is, she told herself, he must be reasonable enough to hear me out. She rushed toward the men, and before they knew what was happening, she was already standing before the special man. Only then did she see his face clearly, and he resembled her 3 boys. Coincidence, right? The bodyguards moved to drag her away, but the man gestured for them to stop. They all looked surprised. Amy was stunned and tongue-tied, momentarily lost in his handsome face. She blinked herself back to reality, remembering she stood before the most powerful man in the city. "Sir, please forgive me," she said. "This is my 3rd day at work, and I didn't realize I'd forgotten a piece of equipment. I don't want to be fired. I work very hard. Please, sir." Her voice was sincere. He stared at her impassively. When he still didn't speak after 30 seconds, Amy grew nervous. "Did I say something wrong?" "I'm sorry if I said anything inappropriate, sir," she added. Perhaps it was best to leave and accept her fate rather than provoke his anger. His gaze was so cold it felt like it might swallow her. Fear rose in her, and she began to turn away. "How dare you leave?" the man said. Amy froze. His voice was like thunder, sending a chill down her spine. "Have I brought on the very trouble I tried to avoid?" Her mouth trembled as she tried to speak, but the words stuck in her throat. The special man took a step toward the Lamborghini and said casually, "Throw this woman out." Amy curled up on her bed and cried, sad and embarrassed by what had happened today. First, she lost her job. Second, she was thrown out of that man's office. Amy disliked him and knew he was arrogant. How dare she challenge the most powerful man in North Hill? Was she out of her mind? Where would she find another job now? None of the companies she had applied to had replied. The door opened suddenly, and Angel appeared. "Mom." She ran to Amy before Amy could finish wiping away her tears. Amy never liked the children to see her cry, believing it would only worry them. She quickly cleaned her face and smiled. Angel, still troubled, asked, "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nothing at all. I'm just happy to have you all around me," Amy lied. "But we're never away from you," Angel said. Before Amy could respond, Queen and Debbie walked in and climbed onto the bed. Seeing their faces made Amy truly happy. "Mom, you came back from work early today," Queen said. "Yes, I had to leave early because I missed you girls so much," Amy said. And the girls smiled. "Mom, we're starting school next month, right?" Angel asked, while Debbie simply leaned on Amy's shoulder. "Yes, nothing will change that," Amy said hopefully. She had planned to use her salary as a dental assistant to pay the children's school fees by the end of the month, but she had been fired. Still, she had to keep their hopes up and apply even more aggressively for jobs. "Where are your brothers?" Amy asked. "They're doing the cleaning," Queen answered. And Amy nodded. She ruffled Debbie's hair. "Debbie, how's the new place? Do you like it?" "I just want to meet my dad," Debbie said in a low voice, and the cheerful mood turned heavy. "You'll meet him soon, I promise," Amy said. Then to Angel, "Why don't you all go play with your brothers?" "I want to rest a bit. I'll come play once I wake up." "Okay, Mom." The children believed she deserved some rest after work. Once the girls had left the room, Amy sighed. There was no one she could run to for help. She had to be strong for her children. Her phone chirped. Although the number was unknown, she answered anyway. "Is this Amy Owen?" "That's right," Amy replied, hoping this was good news. "We sent you an email 3 days ago and haven't received your reply. Please check your spam folder and let us know what you think," the man said and hung up. Amy checked her email every day, sometimes every hour, to see if any company had gotten back to her. How could she have missed this? She quickly opened the spam folder and found an email from Alessandro Corporation. Alessandro Corporation. Their pay was among the highest. Anyone would be lucky to work there. Joy filled her heart, and she couldn't wait to resume work the next day. That evening, she played games with her 6 children. They had so much fun before everyone went to bed. Yet, she knew that no matter how happy they were, their joy wouldn't be complete until they met their father. Even she could not say who their father was. There were more than 1 million men in North Hill. How could she ever identify the gigolo she had slept with 6 years ago? She went to Alessandro Corporation the next day. After introducing herself to the receptionist, she was interviewed and hired on the spot. The receptionist led her upstairs, showed her to her desk, and introduced her to the head of department. "Welcome to Alessandro Corporation, Miss Amy," said Abe, the head of department. "It's my pleasure, sir," Amy replied, sitting confidently. "Here is our orientation handbook. It contains the company's rules and regulations," Abe said, handing her a document. "All right, sir. I'll go through it," she said. "And here is the work your predecessor left. You need to complete the project by the end of this month," he added. "That's not a problem, sir." When she saw Abe busy writing, she asked, "May I take my leave, sir? I need to take you to the CEO's office. It's our tradition for every new employee to meet him before starting," he said. "All right, sir." Amy waited until Abe finished writing, then followed him. They left the room, turned right, and soon arrived at a door on which Abe knocked. "Come in," a voice called, and they entered. A slim lady stood there with a cup of coffee, but the office chair was empty. It seemed the CEO had stepped out. "Miss Bonnie," Abe greeted. "Hey, Abe," Bonnie said, setting the coffee down gently. "I think the boss went to handle something. He should be back shortly. I was told to make coffee for him." "All right," Abe said, watching Bonnie leave. "That's the CEO's secretary. You heard me call her name, right?" he asked Amy. "Yes, I did," Amy answered. They waited in silence for another 8 minutes, but there was no sign of the CEO. "Amy, you can wait here a few more minutes. When he comes, just introduce yourself. As long as you're not on his blacklist, you won't have any problem," he said and walked away. Not on his blacklist? What did he mean by that? She hadn't even met the CEO. How could she already be on his blacklist? She waited 20 more minutes, shifting her weight again and again. And when nearly an hour had passed, she decided it was time to leave. What kind of CEO tells his secretary to prepare coffee and then fails to show up for over an hour? Maybe he'd been caught up in something. As Amy was about to leave, she glanced around the large office once more, and her eyes landed on a bracelet. It looked very familiar. She walked over and touched it. It was the bracelet her mother had given her. After leaving North Hill 6 years ago, she had noticed it was missing, and had always wondered how she could have lost it since it had always been on her wrist. How in the world did the CEO get hold of her bracelet? She confirmed by touching and examining it again. It was hers. It wouldn't be right to simply take it. That could land her in trouble. It was best to find out who the CEO was first. Curious about the CEO who had her bracelet, she waited another 45 minutes, but still saw no one. Her legs ached from standing so long, so she left the office. After work, she received an internal call from the head of department asking her to report to his office, and she went. Once she was seated, Abe asked, "Did you meet the CEO?" "No, sir. I waited for hours but didn't see him." "Maybe I'll go to his office tomorrow," she said. "All right. How was your first day at work?" Abe asked. "Very good, sir. Thank you." "My colleagues were nice, too," Amy said with a smile. "Would you mind if I ask a question?" Abe said. "Sure, sir," Amy replied politely. "Since I didn't see a ring on your finger, does that mean you're not married? Do you have a boyfriend?" Abe asked. This was her first day at work, and he was already asking such a personal question. "I'd prefer not to talk about personal matters, sir," Amy said. "Oh," Abe exclaimed. "Okay. May I leave?" Amy asked. "I've got a lot of money. We could be in a relationship, and your days here would be much easier." "I assure you," Abe said, eyeing her greedily. Reading the look on his face, Amy said that I'm not that cheap. "Excuse me, sir." She turned to go, but Abe spoke again. "Or I can make your life miserable here if you're playing too hard to get." He smirked. Amy walked out without reacting or saying another word. While Amy was heading home, she realized she hadn't bought her kids any surprise gifts. They all understood her financial situation and never asked for presents, but today she decided to treat them. As for Abe, she didn't want to think about him. He wasn't the CEO, so there was nothing he could do to her. She wasn't afraid of him. In fact, she disliked the kind of man he had already shown himself to be. How could a man meet someone for the first time and immediately display such obvious lust and irresponsibility? Amy stopped by the mall, and as soon as she walked and saw a slap land on an old man's cheek. "What?" she exclaimed. She pushed through the crowd until she reached the old man. The burly man who had slapped him wore a suit, and several other men in suits stood nearby. "How dare you slap this old man?" Amy challenged. "Don't you have any respect for the elderly at all?" Everyone around stared in shock. They looked at one another, fearful not for themselves, but for Amy, who had the courage to stand up to the man in the suit. "Who are you?" the man in the suit asked, looking Amy up and down with condescension. "Do you know who we are?" "I don't care who you are." "It's wrong to hit an elderly person," Amy said firmly. "Apologize to him and compensate him." "Or what?" the man snapped. "Or I'll slap you back," Amy replied. She didn't care about the consequences. She was ready to defend the old man. "How dare you?" "I promise you'll leave here in pieces," he threatened. Amy answered with a ringing slap across his face. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones were raised. People took photos and recorded videos. Would he beat her in public? Who was this man? Amy wondered as she braced for whatever would come next. "You dared to slap me," the man growled, raising his baton, ready to bring it down on her. "Stop." A deep, commanding voice spoke from behind. The man froze and turned. He lowered his head, ready to explain, but the person who had spoken raised a hand for silence. When he stepped forward, Amy recognized him. The special man who had come to the hospital the day before for a dental examination. What was he doing here? He leaned toward his personal assistant and whispered. Immediately, the assistant cleared everyone out, leaving Amy alone with the most powerful man in North Hill and his entourage. The old man who had been slapped was also kept there. He wasn't allowed to leave with the others. Are you trying to get my attention by any means, woman? The powerful man asked. No, I'm not, Amy said quickly. I didn't even know you were here. I saw this man slap the old man, and it disgusted me. Everyone was watching, so I stepped in to defend him. The old man stole from me, the powerful man said. Amy frowned and turned to the old man, whose face looked so innocent. Did you really steal? Yes, the old man admitted shamefacedly. The most powerful man in North Hill looked back at Amy. You're clearly one of those women who can't wait to throw themselves at me. I know your type. You've appeared before me twice now and already shown how desperate you are. He stretched out a hand to his assistant, who, understanding the silent cue, handed him a $100 bill. He offered it to Amy. Take this and don't ever appear before me again. If I see you next time, I'll destroy you. Amy was stunned. Did he think she was __ or some starstruck girl begging for attention? Keep your money, sir, she said evenly. I only did what was right. I'll take my leave. The assistant moved to stop her, but the man motioned for him to let her go. This would be his last warning to this woman. If he saw her again, he would teach her a lesson she would never forget. He would crush her completely. For now, he would let her go. Should I look into her? The assistant asked, already suspecting that Amy might be up to something involving his boss. Why else would she show up 2 days in a row? I don't need it, the man replied. She isn't worth having as an enemy. Forget her. He turned and walked away. And what about the old man who stole? The assistant asked. Let him go and fire the one who raised his hand against that woman, the man commanded. Got it, the assistant said. Once Amy was out of sight of the most powerful man in North Hill, she pressed a hand to her chest and exhaled in relief. That had been a narrow escape. Why had she had to run into him 2 days in a row? She didn't want trouble, yet trouble seemed to be finding her. Why had he judged her like that? Did he really think she was trying to meet him on purpose? Why would she ever do that? Still, it was a narrow escape. Amy prayed never to meet him again. She resolved to mind her own business and avoid large gatherings. Wherever he was, the place would be crowded. She waited a while for her thundering heart to settle, then went back into the mall and bought caps for her children. They were expensive, but if they would make her kids happy, she didn't mind. When she got home, her 6 little ones gathered around her, welcoming her with delight. Can anyone guess what I bought for you all? Amy asked as she sat in the living room with her 6 kids. They tossed out all kinds of guesses, and Amy kept saying no. Frustration turned to laughter, and at last they begged her to tell them. So nobody can guess, right? She teased. A cap, said Debbie, who had been quietly watching the others. Smart, Amy praised her. It's a cap. Mom, show us, Elijah said. I can't wait. Bring it out already, Alicia chimed in. Mom got a cap. Oh my gosh, I'll even wear mine to sleep, Moses said. Mom, let me see, Angel urged. I'm sure it's beautiful, Queen added. Amy brought out the caps, and the children started grabbing them at random. She laughed. No, these are for the boys, and these are for the girls. She sorted the caps into 2 groups. Soon everyone had a beautiful cap on their head. They were so happy and thanked Amy. Even quiet Debbie thanked her. Amy cracked a joke with them all, then went to her room to rest. The next morning, Amy dressed for work and left home. She met Abe on the way to her desk, and despite what had happened the day before, greeted him politely. Abe ignored her greeting. The CEO is in the office. Report to him immediately. Got it, Amy said. She dropped her bag on her desk and went to the CEO's office. She knocked gently. There was no response. Before she could knock again, the door opened on its own. Modern door, she thought. Amy wore a knee-length office skirt and a white long-sleeve shirt. Her dark hair fell neatly to her shoulders. In high heels, she looked both adorable and professional. Seeing a man seated in the CEO's chair, she sighed with relief. At least, she wouldn't be kept standing today. His head was bent over his laptop, as though he were busy. Amy wasn't sure whether to speak. He seemed occupied, but she couldn't just stand there silently. "Good morning, sir. I'm Amy Owen, the new employee. Have a seat," he said, cutting her off without lifting his eyes from the laptop. A few seconds later, he pushed the laptop aside, and their eyes met. Both of them were surprised. They had never expected to meet again, especially not like this. Amy's heart pounded, and she wished the ground would swallow her up. This man had warned her never to appear before him again, and that the next time she did, he would destroy her. Why was fate punishing her by putting her in his path? "You dared to appear before me again, you cunning woman," said Brick Aleandro, the most powerful man in North Hill. His gaze dangerous. Amy's mouth trembled, and she shook her head. "I didn't know you were the CEO, sir." I never knew Brick didn't believe her. Everyone knew he was the CEO of Alessandro Corporation. This woman even had the nerve to lie to his face. He rose. When Amy saw him stand, her heart thudded harder. She froze. Should she run? Oh God, would she lose her second job in a single week? Why was she so unlucky here? She edged back. You can fire me, sir." "Not that easy." "Tell me what you want," he replied, walking toward her slowly, elegantly, with an intimidating aura. Amy kept retreating, her heart leaping into her throat. She felt trapped like a prisoner, yet the door stayed in the corner of her vision. Should she run or stay? He's human, isn't he? Running would make it look as if she had a hidden agenda for always showing up before him. She should stay and make him see that meeting 3 times in 3 days was mere coincidence. Strange, yes, but coincidence. Why would she encounter the same man 3 days in a row? And worse, he was the most powerful man in North Hill. Amy stood her ground until he stopped in front of her. His scent filled her nose and slid into her lungs, alluring and somehow familiar. She strained to remember if they had met before. In the past 2 days, she had never stood this close to notice his scent. "Who are you?" he asked suspiciously. She either wanted something or had been sent by his enemies. There was no way he would believe she had no hidden agenda. "I'm Amy Owen, and I just moved to this city. I applied for a job a few days ago, and the hospital where we met was the first organization that hired me. The second was here. I never planned to meet you, sir. I don't know why fate keeps bringing us together," she said. He studied her while Amy grew tense, wondering what he would do or say next. He was so close she found it hard to breathe, as if she were trapped in a lion's den. If she left this place alive, she'd be the luckiest woman in the world. "Didn't I tell you that the next time we met I'd destroy you?" he said sternly, hazel blue, eyes flashing with anger. She swallowed. "Please believe me." Before she could finish, he grabbed her and in a swift movement pinned her on his desk, papers neatly arranged beneath her. She barely knew how it happened. One moment she was standing, the next she was on her back on the desk, his hand pressed to her throat. "Woman, I know your type. You want sex, and I'll give it to you here." Amy's head reeled. "I'm not __didn't." She wanted to defend herself, but his hand on her throat made it hard to speak or even breathe. He brought his face close, breath fanning her lips. "Isn't that what you want?" A sardonic smile curved his mouth. Amy shook her head, but could hardly speak. She tried to slap his hand away, but he was too strong. Suddenly, he released her throat. Amy jerked upright, coughing over and over, silently thanking God for escaping death. "This man is dangerous." She arched her back, gulping air until she could breathe normally, then stood panting. "I'll leave now and never come before you again," she said, head lowered, and started toward the door. She had her hand on the knob when his words stopped her. "Your scent is familiar," he said, and Amy froze. Her scent familiar to him, too. If she walked out now, would he be angry that she dared to leave? What kind of trouble had she brought on herself? As she hesitated, his majestic voice rolled like thunder. "You are that woman." Amy almost melted. What woman? Confused, she turned slowly. "This is only the third time I've seen you, sir. The day before yesterday. Yesterday and today. And I swear it was a coincidence. I promised never to show up before you again. If I do, you can do whatever you want with me. You are the woman who took advantage of my condition many years ago," he declared. Amy frowned in shock. Take advantage of him? Where? How? Many years ago. Impossible. She had never met him before. There must be a mistake. "I'll submit my resignation," she said, bowing. She tried to leave, but his hard voice stopped her. "Don't take a step." He walked up and forced her to face him, buried his face in her shoulder, then lifted his head. "You are indeed that woman," he said with certainty. Amy shook her head slowly, baffled. He went to the table and picked up a bracelet. "After taking advantage of me and letting me have sex with you, you forgot your bracelet and even left money. Who did you think I am?" Amy's mind raced back to the night she'd thrown herself at a random man and had sex without thinking of the consequences. She'd assumed he was a gigolo. Could this be the man from years ago? No. Impossible. The club she'd gone to had been one of the most luxurious in North Hill. But could the most powerful man in the city have been there? Oh, his scent. She'd noticed it a few minutes ago. It seemed it was him. No wonder he looked like the father of her children. So, she had finally found the father of her children, but she would never let him know. She didn't even want to get close to a man as powerful as he was. He was too intimidating and would probably see her as an insect. If he learned about the children, he could have them taken from her and cast her aside with nothing. He had the power to do it. She didn't know whether meeting the father of her children was a blessing or a curse. She shook her head as if she remembered nothing and prepared to lie. But before she could speak, he sat on the desk, crossed his legs, and fixed his eyes on her. "I found you," he said, rolling the bracelet on his finger. "I guess you don't need this anymore." "That's not mine." "I've never met you before," she said. All she wanted was to leave and avoid him at all costs. He tossed the bracelet to the floor and moved to crush it under his shoe. Instinctively, she rushed forward. "Please don't destroy it." "I thought you said it wasn't yours," he asked, his foot hovering over the bracelet. She couldn't watch him destroy the only bracelet that reminded her of her mother. Her mother had given it to her a few months before she died. Seeing it smashed would feel like losing her mother again. She couldn't bear it. "It's mine," she confessed. "Please give it back." "Now I see why you've been appearing before me," he said, lifting her by the chin and tightening his grip until she winced. "You were clever then, and even cleverer after 6 years." He released her and returned to his seat. Amy sighed with relief when he finally sat down. "I want to know everything about you," he said. Years ago, he had ordered his personal assistant, Brett, to find the woman who had slept with him. But all efforts had failed. He had never expected the woman who had dared take advantage of him to show up as an employee in his office. He would punish her for what she did 6 years ago. "I'm Amy Owen, a graduate of the university. Of who is your husband?" He interrupted. "I don't have one," she answered. "Boyfriend?" "No," she replied. "Then you must be a full-time prostitute. You prefer jumping on every rich man and giving your body rather than marrying someone." "Disgusting," he said, shooting her a look of contempt. Amy reeled at the insult. How could she explain that she wasn't a prostitute? That she had seduced him that night only because she was heartbroken and not in her right mind? In fact, she hadn't been with any man since. How could he think of her that way? So, why were you refusing sex a few minutes ago? This is what you want. It's why you keep appearing before me, right? He stood, shut the door, and said, "Let's repeat what happened that night." "Take off your clothes." "Huh?" Amy's eyes widened. "Aren't you a prostitute? Why disguise yourself? Don't dare disobey me. I rule all of North Hill, and you can never escape me. I'll make your life a living hell here, woman. Take off your clothes." Amy backed away. "I'm not a prostitute. Please don't do this to me. I'm not that kind of woman. What happened that year was a mistake. Please, if I pounce on you, I'll be very rough and you won't enjoy it. I won't repeat myself again." Stripped naked, he commanded. "Please, I didn't come here on purpose, and I sincerely apologize for that night. Please forgive me," she pleaded. There was a long silence. Anyone near Amy could have heard her heartbeat. It was thumping, so hard it felt as if her heart might rip apart. She didn't want this fierce-looking man to pounce on her. If he did, what could she do? She had started all this 6 years ago, and she could only hope he would change his mind. She just wanted to leave this office and run as fast as her legs could carry her out of the company. He walked toward her, then suddenly turned back to his seat and said, "Leave. Leave." Amy thought she must have misheard. Did he say leave? Was he telling her to go? She began to walk out slowly, hoping she had understood him correctly. She turned the knob and the door opened. Oh my gosh! Once outside the office, she let out a deep breath. That was a narrow escape. She needed to leave this company as soon as possible. He had recognized her, and he was surely nursing a grudge. If she could avoid this place and anywhere crowds gathered, then she could avoid him, right? She went to her desk, slipped her things into her small handbag, and quickly wrote a resignation letter. Then she headed straight to Abee's office to submit it. "I won't be able to work here anymore. I'm sorry," she said after he accepted the letter. Abe read it and saw it was indeed a resignation letter. He smirked. "Didn't I tell you that if you don't give in to me, I'll make your life miserable?" Who said she was resigning because of Abe? What an idiot. Just yield to me, and your future is secure here. If you leave, you won't find a high-paying job like this again, Abe added. Of course, what other company paid, as well as Alessandro's corporation? "Excuse me," Amy said dryly. She turned to go. As she stepped into the hallway, she saw a familiar face, the man she'd seen with Brick yesterday, his PA. He was the one from whom Brick had taken back the $100 bill he tried to give her. "Hi," she greeted, already edging away. But Brett, Brick's personal assistant, spoke up. "If you leave and try to apply for a job, no company in all of North Hill will employ you." "Not one," Brett said. His words gave her goosebumps. "Why? What have I done?" Amy asked. "Mr. Brick," Brett replied, mentioning only his CEO's name. "I already apologized to him before leaving his office." "Is he the reason I won't get a job anywhere?" she asked. "Yes, he'll fire you at the right time, but until then, you must keep working here." "Of course, you can disobey his order and leave," Brett said, then walked away. Amy was confused. Didn't he say he didn't want to see her again? Why keep her here then so he could watch her and punish her? Who was she to challenge the most powerful man in North Hill? She returned to Abee's office. "I've changed my mind. I'm not resigning." "Okay, arrange it. I'll go," she said. A couple of hours later, Leola and Amy stepped out of a cab and walked into the club. Seeing many people dancing, Leola persuaded Amy to join in. But Amy said she wasn't ready and would join when she was. Leola was used to the atmosphere. She came twice a week, but Amy wasn't. She decided to watch what was going on before joining. She had a bright smile on her face as she watched people dance. Then, looking around, she saw something that made the smile suddenly disappear. Her face hardened into a frown when she saw Callan and his secretary dancing together. A few minutes after she noticed them, they left the dance floor and surprisingly started walking toward her. Memories of the past rushed through her, and she clenched her fists in anger. They're still together, Amy thought. She shouldn't have expected anything less. They might even be married. Callan unexpectedly sat in the seat across from her with Joan beside him. Joan rested a hand on his shoulder and smirked at Amy, while Callan's expression remained completely indifferent. Are you here to pick up a man? You'll only find someone who will underscore you for one night and dump you. Nobody wants to end up with a barren woman, Joan said sarcastically. If only this idiot knew she now had 6 babies, she would stop calling her barren. You two must be bored or drunk. I'll excuse you, Amy said. Their presence disgusted her, especially Callan, who had betrayed her. It's been 6 years, and you still haven't moved on. Could it be that you still have feelings for me? Callan asked with a scoff. He had already confirmed there was no ring on her finger, so he knew she wasn't married. I'm married, Amy said angrily. Did these people really think she was a loser? What nonsense, Ken. And Joan scoffed. You forgot you have no ring on your finger, Joan said. Amy didn't want to leave looking like a loser. She needed to let Callan know she had moved on. She glanced around and saw a man walking through the club. He wore a suit and looked corporate, but she couldn't see his face clearly because the club lighting was blue. She walked toward him and took his hand. Hey, hubby, she said with a smile. The man dropped his gaze to the hand holding his. He wanted to grab her by the neck and slam her into the wall, but then he saw Callan and Joan walking toward them. Callan laughed. This is your hubby? You're joking, huh? Joan scoffed, and within seconds, the spot became crowded. The man Amy held was too popular. He always drew a crowd wherever he went, the price he paid for being the most powerful man in the city. Sorry I'm late, sir, Brett said as he appeared. Seeing Amy holding his boss's hand, he furrowed his brow. Amy had just committed suicide. She might be standing, but she had only a few seconds left to live. Who dared hold Mr. Brick's hand? He wanted to shout at Amy to let go immediately, but Brick motioned for him to be quiet. Mr. Brick, I'm the first daughter of the Annell family. This lady holding you isn't your husband, right? She must be lying. She's so good at lying, Joan said to Brick, ready to ridicule Amy in front of the crowd. Amy, standing beside the man, heard his name and furrowed her brow in shock. Brick, her CEO, the most powerful man in North Hill. Of all the men in the club, he was the one she had chosen to claim as her husband. Was she cursed to always run into him? Now, it seemed he might kill her this time. She began to sweat. Realizing she was still holding Brick's hand, she slowly let go and tried to run, but Brick gripped her arms tightly and dragged her along without a word. Brick's bodyguards didn't usually follow him inside the club. They stayed outside so as not to intimidate the patrons. Broderick and Amy were soon inside a room. Please, please, Amy pleaded. Before she could say another word, he slammed her against the wall and crushed his lips to hers. She tried to resist, but his lips tasted so sweet that her eyes closed, and she found herself responding. How could a man be this good at kissing? Suddenly, she opened her eyes as the reality of whom she was kissing hit her. He pulled back abruptly, dragged her to the bed, and pushed her down. Amy dared not say a word. She had brought this on herself by calling him, of all people, hubby. He lay on top of her and grabbed her chin, lust visible in his eyes. Amy could feel the bulge in his trousers, but she dared not speak. Hubby, huh? He asked suddenly. Amy shook her head and managed to speak beneath him. I didn't know it was you. He slid his middle finger into her mouth, not giving her a chance to speak. He stood and pulled her up, dragging her roughly against him. one hand around her waist, pressing her to his body. "What do you want from me, woman? Because the only thing I can offer you is my will you not stop until you get me into your bed again?" Amy closed her eyes in fear. His tone was dangerous, and she felt he might devour her. How could a man be this full of peril? "Speak," he demanded so sharply that she jerked back, but she couldn't move. He had her pinned hard against his body. "I did not." "Huh? You dare lie?" He grabbed her hair and yanked it down, forcing her head up with a wheeze. "Unzip and take it into your mouth," he ordered. "Please, I'm not that kind of woman," she blurted. "I swear I didn't know it was you. Please let me go." "Isn't this what you like? You're not only good at lying, but also at pretending. Didn't you seduce me into putting my entire length inside you years back? I didn't come to you. You came to me. You always do. You want more, right? I know your type. A one-night stand never satisfies you. You want more of my, I won't repeat myself. Unzip me and take the entire length in."